All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you all to our Business Hackathon event featuring AJ Abdallat, CEO. Beyond Limits is a pioneering artificial intelligence engineering company that goes beyond AI to develop solutions that incorporate human reasoning to solve complex business problems. AJ has over 20 years of experience building high-tech startups in the field of bio-inspired artificial intelligence, reasoning systems, and smart sensors. Welcome, AJ.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Thank you. This event is a collaboration among the Business Club chapters at Glendale Community College, USC, and UCLA. I'm Sophia Abramian, chairman of GCC Business Club, and I'm super excited to start this event. So before we start, I'd like to thank the Business Club team and the whole network for helping make this happen. For the students who don't know what Business Club is, or it's your first time joining one of our events, feel free to check out the Club Business website or ask any question you have during the event. So, there will also be a signing sheet for those of you who would like to become a member of the club. During this event, we will learn more about AJ's experience and AI's use in business. We will also hear GCC students present their software projects and receive feedback from our speaker. Lastly, we will have a Q&A session asking all the audience's questions from the chat. So now to discussion, I'm going to pass it down to Giovanni, the chairman of BC.
Hi. So to introduce myself, I'm Giovanni Zador, the chairman of Business SC, which is of course our USC chapter of the Business Club. And I'm going to be hosting the interview portion for today. So first of all, AJ, very nice and a pleasure to meet you.
Okay.
And to get started off with discussion, I'm just going to be asking some questions and we'll let it free flow and go from there. AJ, could you please briefly give us your background, including education, career timeline, and any hobbies you enjoy outside your workplace?
Sure. So again, let me take the opportunity to thank the club, both clubs, business clubs, for inviting me and for the opportunity to speak to your members. So my background, I was engineer by training, always loved technology, was interested in technology, and I was blessed and fortunate that after I graduated from engineering school, I had the opportunity to, what I consider the dream job is to work with the space program, and specifically the unmanned space program. And it was truly a tremendous opportunity. Since most of our members are in Southern California, both in Glendale, UCLA, and I believe maybe USC, you all are familiar with NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. That's where I started my my career, and my love for really technology got me to really kind of become an entrepreneur. Just from a history point of view, if you look at the technology commercialization business in the US, the top 4 producers of IP in the United States are MIT, with a strong history and tradition of technology commercialization, and then 3 universities here on the West Coast, the University of California system, of course. So for those of you from UCLA should be proud, but this is a collective UC system, Stanford, and of course, Caltech. Caltech did not have really a strong tradition in technology commercialization. That kind of changed in 1998 when they brought in a new president that really wanted to make it the hallmark of his administration to do tech commercialization. I volunteered and was really fortunate to participate in that program. And my career as a serial entrepreneur started in 1998, and it's been a tremendous and great journey.
Great. So to piggyback off of that, how did your space trajectory at JPL, being an engineer that you were there, lead you to the position of working in AI and machine learning?
So uh, at JPL, and I was always fascinated and interested in intelligent systems, in intelligent sensors. Uh, so Sensor fusion. Just for the audience here, machine learning was coined. I'm sorry. Artificial intelligence was coined by John McCarthy of MIT in 1956. So AI has been around for a decade, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, specifically, machine learning was invented in 1959 by Arthur Samuel, but it really didn't become popular until the last, I would say, 15 years. And there were really two reasons for that. One is we really needed data, lots of data, to take advantage of machine learning. And the other element is we really needed the compute infrastructure to have the cost be reasonable and the performance be significant. And that really, with Moore's law, didn't happen until the last 2 decades. So it created the right elements for AI and for machine learning to grow, and we had a phenomenal success with pioneers like Jeffrey Hinton with Google and Leon Cohn with Facebook, and it was a tremendous success story. If I may, and I know this is not part of the question, just to kind of expand on that, we were able to really solve a lot of problems with machine learning and deep learning techniques. But now we're beginning to kind of run into a different class of problems where the complexity of the problems require us to do a lot more than just a data-driven or a numeric data-driven approach to solving the problems. But let me just pause here and Giovanni just kind of pick up on your last question.
Sure. So what work were you doing at JPL that specifically led to AI and ML, or rather, what sparked your interest in AI from that point?
So as I'm sure most of you know, you're in Southern California. We all know JPL is part of the NASA community. NASA has 10 major centers. JPL is one of them, but they're unique. Their mandate, they focus on the unmanned space program. So they're responsible for exploring our solar system and beyond. So all the robotic spacecraft we sent to space, the rovers we sent to Mars and land on Mars are basically managed by JPL. And by the way, it's also important to note that they do actually everything from conceptual design of the mission to actually assembling the spacecraft. They actually assemble the spacecrafts here in Pasadena. But if you take an example like the Mars rover, for example, let's take Curiosity. It's a journey of 500 million miles to get to Mars. It takes 6 months to get there. The signal takes 45, anywhere between 15 minutes to 45 minutes to get back to Earth. So you really need to really create and build some intelligence into these systems because it's difficult to kind of, manage them remotely. And what JPL did is they really created a world-class organization that kind of focused on solving these complex problems and challenges, facing the unmanned space program. Did, build a world-class team and build great capabilities and great technologies. And in 1998, we really had the mandate under Dr. David Baltimore to try to commercialize these technologies, take these technologies that were built by the US government and NASA specifically, and apply them to solving complex problems here on Earth. And that's what Beyond Limits was created and built, to accomplish that purpose.
Right. And with the commercialization of those technologies, AI specifically, and Beyond Limits, I'd like to ask you, what service does your company provide and how is the business model, i.e., process of managing clients, customers, employees, interns, and just what problems do you focus on working on?
Great question. So today, if you look at the landscape of AI, most companies out there are basically focusing on the data-driven approach, machine learning and deep learning, which, by the way, is a very important element. What we do is we're taking a different approach, which really make us kind of unique. We're borrowing a page from NASA's JPL. So we do something that we call cognitive AI, which is a hybrid approach that leverages the data-driven machine learning and deep learning in addition to human-like reasoning, something we call human-like reasoning on the symbolic side. And the reason for that is, again, as I mentioned, in space, you're not gonna have pristine data. You're gonna have gaps in your data. You're gonna have missing data. You're gonna have data that is contradicting. And with a typical pure machine learning approach, that's going to be problematic. So you can't send a high value asset that costs, hundreds of millions to a few $1 billion and say, well, I'm sorry, I can't continue with the mission because, I have gaps. I have problem here. So they had to, figure out how to think outside the box, how to solve problems when they run into these situations. And that's why they applied this unified approach. And what we're finding out is some of the challenges we're facing in space are complex in nature that are similar to some of the challenges, for example, in the energy sector. So we're taking the same approach and we're applying it to the industrial sector, focusing on solving some complex problem, and we're having great success.
Right. So from my knowledge of AI, does that human-like decision making involve like the study of neural networks and because I know there's machine learning, which is data driven, like you said, and then you have the cognitive side, which is sort of human driven. Does that involve neural networks and studying the brain?
So machine learning involves neural networks.
Okay.
And really simply put, for those of you who are not in data science or in the AI field, machine learning is the ability to kind of predict the future based on the past. So you're feeding the system large data sets, and what you're trying to do is you're trying to extract features. And basically, when you extract these features, you're trying to predict what's going to happen next. And it really works beautifully. It's a very beautiful concept. And again, if you have the data, if you have the compute infrastructure, and the data is pristine, it's a phenomenal capability, and it's a very accurate capability. And it has matured to the level where now we're taking, we're great strides on that front. Again, the problem is, and the reason we like human-like reasoning is sometimes, you're not going to have pristine data. You're going to have gaps in the data. So with human-like reasoning, think of it exactly as, when we're sending kids to college, to become doctors or engineers or whatever the case might be. You are studying, you're using textbooks, you're learning from your professors, you're interacting with your colleagues, the experience, you're studying on your own, you're going into the labs. And that's really what human-like reasoning is all about. And that's what we do, and it is a very important element. And again, it's a very important element when you're trying to solve something or to address a phenomena that you haven't you haven't seen before. Uh, so when you apply the combination, when you apply the data and the human-like reasoning, it's a very powerful capability.
So implementing this idea, what are some projects Beyond Limits is currently working on for clients or businesses, and integrating AI into those industries?
So we started with the industrial space, and I'm a big fan of the industrial space.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was somewhat influenced, and maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit, by the investment, the strategic investment in Beyond Limits. So one of our strategic investors is a large energy company. So obviously it did affect and influence the strategic direction of the company. But I mean, these energy companies, when they're exploring for resources, whether it's oil and gas, you're operating in harsh environments similar to space, whether it's in the Gulf of Mexico, North Sea, the Sahara Desert. It's very similar, harsh, environment. So there's a lot of similarities, actually, with space. The way I like to think about it is anytime where really you have large or high value assets, and you want to make sure that it's a mission critical application, and you can't stop because any of the issues related, to the data, the cognitive AI approach is working. Let me just quickly also mention an example, because I think it's worth mentioning. I mentioned we have a large energy player. It's British Petroleum, a strategic customer and an investor. They actually had a unique problem that was not data driven, but was more knowledge driven. And they were encountering a problem when they were drilling, their deep wells in the Gulf of Mexico. And they were encountering a problem called extreme sanding. And the way they were able to solve this problem is they built a phenomenal world-class team led by a brilliant scientist. The problem for them is, you could not scale up that team. They had over 4,500 wells. The team could only touch 12 to 13 wells per year. So it was more of a kind of a scalability issue. And again, it was not data driven. It was more kind of a human knowledge driven. And our approach worked with them because we were able to codify that knowledge by that team, and basically scale up that capability for them across the enterprise. And now they're operating in multiple countries, and they were able to, again, significantly go to a higher number of wells.
Cool. So you guys worked with BP, which is, I'm sure, a big oil company that many people here know. And that sort of ties into the next question I was going to ask about funding and investment. You said they invested in Beyond Limits. Other than that, how did you gain funding for your company?
So I started my career as an entrepreneur back in 1998. I did several companies out of Caltech and JPL. I've raised about $250 million. I'm a big fan of strategic investors like BP. And if you look at the history of funding that I have done, mainly it came from strategic investors. So I like strategic investors because you're not only getting the money, you're also getting someone that is going to be your customer, and is going to generate revenue for you. Having said that, as an entrepreneur, you'll take money. There's nothing wrong taking money from from VCs, or from if you get at an advanced stage, from private equity guys. But I always had an interest for going after strategic money and strategic investment, and that formula kind of worked for us.
Right. So would you say those strategic investors have more of a vested interest in specifically your company because it would pay out for them as well?
Yes. So they obviously they are very sophisticated investors. So
Mm.
typically companies like BP and others. I mean, right now, if you think about it, every major corporation they have a venture arm. So they are a sophisticated investors. They have a team uh, with expertise in investment. You know, typically they come from a VC background. So you still get that angle where you have somebody who's looking at your business model, looking at your business plan, identifying gaps, you know, in the issue. But in addition to that, and they have ROI targets. I mean, there is no question about that. You know, they are in a business to make money. That's how they get their incentives. But in addition to that, they have some strategic objectives that are related to their core business. You know, so for example, with BP, they have some tough, complex problems that they wanted us to solve, and they got both. You know,
Yeah.
they were able to increase the value of their equity interest in Beyond Limits, in addition to, get some value from Beyond Limits, applying our capabilities and technologies to solve some of their problems. So, if it's done correctly, it can work beautifully, because you're getting somebody who's investing in you, but at the same time is becoming your strategic customer.
Right. So I know you mentioned a BP in the oil industry, but what are some other potentially leading industries that are currently adopting AI for improvement and innovation that you know of? And how are you specifically involved with the process of helping such companies and industries adopt AI solutions?
So we play in the entire industrial space. So in energy, we play through the entire value chain, upstream, midstream, and downstream.
Mhm.
We really tend to focus, and I think this is an important message I want to get to the younger people out there. I'm a big believer in sustainability and ESG and corporate responsibility. So actually, what we do in the energy industry, we try to focus on applying our capabilities, our AI and technology to really help the sustainability story. So, for example, the less wells you drill, okay, you really, in a way, you're helping the environment, you're reducing the carbon footprint. And that's what we do in optimal placement of wells. We're really making them basically reduce the number of wells that they drill significantly. In the refinery application, which is more kind of a midstream, application, we're also giving them the balance or the lever to basically say how we can achieve some of our, ESG goals. So I'm proud and happy that in our energy involvement, we're trying to solve complex problem for them, but with the focus on sustainability. In the industrial space, we're also into power, into utilities. We are in smart manufacturing. This year, we're getting into healthcare, and we're getting into post-COVID-19. I think there is a significant opportunity in healthcare. We're targeting that, and we're also getting into fintech. So what we would like to do is we like to go after sectors that basically touches, hundreds of millions, billions of lives. That's really, our focus. Tend to focus on big sectors that have an impact on humanity.
Definitely. I know ESG is a big trend in the whole business world right now, and being that AI can help decision making not just in the energy space, but also hearing that it can help in industrial and manufacturing space is really interesting to hear from me. Um, for the next question, do you have, for any current students watching at either USC, UCLA, GCC, or anywhere else, are you hiring for jobs or internships?
So the answer is yes. Okay. So I mean, I speak at a lot of conferences, and I always say that in the U.S., we graduate about a million data scientists a year. We graduate more data scientists and AI engineers than any other country. And specifically, I'm talking about my sector. I'm in the AI business. So, and it's not sufficient for the US market. So there is obviously a huge demand for data science and for AI engineers. And I'm sure you know more than I do. A lot of the big AI companies, they tend to target certain schools, and they tend to hire students before they graduate. What we do at Beyond Limits, we do something a little different. So at JPL, we had an experiment that actually worked very well. So we tend to like domain experts, because we think if you take domain experts like geologists, geophysicists, engineers, you can actually, it's more efficient to teach them AI and data science techniques. It's much more efficient than taking pure data scientists and teaching them domain expertise. I mean, it's difficult to take a data scientist and make him into a geologist. So that actually allowed us to increase our talent pool. So we actually tend to go after, if you're a good engineer, good domain experts, with some, well-grounded in data science, you're really a great candidate for us. But short answer to your question is absolutely, we're hiring. We're scaling up our talent because we're scaling up our footprint. We're a global organization.
Sure. And this is another question that ties into helping out anybody who might be watching. For any aspiring entrepreneurs watching, what is some advice you'd give for someone who wants to build and innovate in the tech industry?
So I would say I've been an entrepreneur and a CEO for the last 23 years, and I love it. It's really a great business. So anybody who aspires to become an entrepreneur, great. It's just a tremendous, high rewarding opportunity. It's a lot of work too. The other thing I want to mention, PwC did a survey for all CEOs, and 60% of CEOs that basically responded, myself included, they really felt that AI will have a larger impact than the internet. I believe in that. I know it's a biased opinion, but 60% of all CEOs. So, I mean, you can imagine the internet had a major impact on our daily lives, and the expectation that AI is going to even have a larger impact. My advice, if that's something you want to do, it's just a tremendous, high rewarding opportunity. It is a lot of work. Try to enjoy the journey as well. Try to create a balance between the high demand for the job itself, because you're going to be a utility individual. You're going to be wearing multiple hats, and you really need to be a very diverse individual. So if you're a technical person, you really need to understand, and I'm addressing this to the engineers out there, how to read, an income statement, financial statements, things of that nature. And if you are a technical individual or majoring, I strongly recommend that you take some business classes. It's useful.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Abdallat. I really enjoyed this discussion with you. I think I'm going to pass it back over to Sophia now to continue with the next portion. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you, Gio, and thank you, AJ. It was really interesting learning about your experience in the field of AI and the tech industry. So now we're going to start with our presentations, and I'm going to start with our first participant, who is Talina Ivazian, who is a second-year student at GCC studying business administration. So Talin, you feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Hi, thank you so much for this opportunity to present in front of you. I look forward to your feedback. Allow me to share my screen. Okay. Thank you for that introduction, Sophia. So my name is Talina Irazian, and I'm here to present my idea for a social commerce mobile app. So in today's world, dressing well is playing a greater role in our lives. However, we just don't have the time to spend on putting outfits together for ourselves, especially if you're someone who's not that into fashion. You might find that you have an event coming up and you have no idea what to wear. Or you find yourself in a situation like this, meeting the Prime Minister of Canada wearing overalls. So you're ready to hand your money over to have a nice outfit, but there are so many roadblocks to finding something new to wear. Problem number one, you go to social media for inspiration, but you are overwhelmed by all the suggestions. On TikTok, there's influencers showing you 10 different outfits in 10 seconds and you can't keep up. On YouTube, you scroll through a 30-minute video with a horde of items and the links to each item look like this. Problem number two. So you might find something you like on Instagram, but then you need to go search for it because you don't know where to purchase the item from. Influencers may have tagged the store, but then you need to go look for it on their website, and most of the time they only tell you where to get one piece of the outfit. At this point, you have 100 different tabs open and a major headache. Problem number three. All of this is taking way too long because you have to go through hundreds of suggestions to find one that you're slightly interested in. You want a way to filter search your options to only see a feed of exactly the kind of clothes you're interested in, but no app has that capability. If only you didn't have to be a stylist to dress like a stylist. If only you could just steal their look. And that brings us to my app idea called Steal. Users will post a video of an outfit directly onto the app like a social media account, and they'll link each item to a store's website and tag each item under detailed descriptions such as its color, its price, how much coverage it has, even the size of the person, so some viewer of the video will know how the item will fit. And there are some competitors, direct competitors that offer style inspiration and directly link to purchases include Like to Know It, Pinterest, and Instagram, and some indirect competitors who either do not offer styling inspiration or do not have a shopping plugin are TikTok, Google Shopping, and Facebook Marketplace. However, the problem with these companies is their method of finding what to buy. It's a long, fragmented path to making a purchase, and they cater to brands before people. With Steal, shopping is simplified. You can explore outfit ideas in one place. There's no other social commerce app that caters to the need of styling a shoppable outfit. And this streamlines the shopper journey on one app by eliminating the need to flip between different apps for product discovery. And you can fine-tune your search results to your need. When you think of a feed, you think of endlessly scrolling through videos selected for you by an algorithm. We will cut out wasted time scrolling by giving back full control of the content a user sees by an advanced filter search. And you get convenient access to direct links like a shopping cart, so you're connected directly to the products. However, we want to make the shopping experience even more streamlined, but we've identified a gap in technology. Ideally, we would allow users to shop an entire outfit from a video that has been pieced together from different stores in one swipe with their size, billing, and shipping information automatically filled out for them. Kind of like how a shopping bot can be programmed to make a purchase on a website for a newly released item by making a back-end request. But according to my research, there is currently no software that allows you to make purchases from multiple stores on one app. But what if we partnered with stores to allow a software to autofill information and make purchases for them on the website? And this would have an endless array of applications, from interior design mood boards being instantly shoppable to personal shoppers creating looks for their clients. And this is something we plan to tackle in the future of this application. But right now, the market trend shows that there's a wave of shoppers who are transitioning to online shopping and are seeking faster and easier solutions. According to Statista, the number of digital shoppers in the US has grown by more than 20 million people since 2016. Steel will be a crucial new platform for a gap in the market for faster product discovery while supporting the growing number of content creators as well. We will target men and women in the United States ages 16 and over who have an iPhone, are active digital shoppers, and use social media. To attract shoppers to the platform, we will leverage influencer marketing, and to attract content creators to become stylists on the app, we'll be launching ads on pages where they may be currently pursuing fashion blogging like TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Pinterest. Additionally, we could hold campaigns with high school and college fashion clubs. So how I plan to go about building the app is step one, I'm going to bootstrap as I design the user interface and the user experience of the app on a software called Figma. I'll do some user testing and finalize the prototype. Then I'll move on to step two, which I will utilize equity crowdfunding online to raise $80,000 to hire a software development firm to build a native iPhone app on the App Store. The backend will consist of two major databases, one for user accounts and another one for managing links to the products. And then step three, we will submit the app to the App Store for approval and launch our product. After gathering data, we'll seek an angel investor to help us scale our product. And that brings you to the end of my presentation. Everyone deserves to dress on the outside the way that they feel on the outside. Thank you so much again, Business Club, for this opportunity. And Mr. Abdallat, I look forward to your feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tallene. I've had a similar experience where I saw something online and then I wanted to purchase it, but I had a hard time finding it. So great idea and great presentation. I'm going to pass it down to our speaker, AJ, for further feedback.
Thank you. Really a great presentation. I want to compliment you on your style of presentation. A great style. Obviously, you thought about the problem. I like the way you've addressed the problem. It's a market I don't understand. Obviously, I'm a different generation, but obviously you have thought about a lot of the elements. Just a couple of quick things. I know you mentioned that you're going to go after crowd funding. So my comments going to only be specific to if you were going to go and seek perhaps seed funding, angel funding, pre-Series A funding. And by the way, I think you have a good shot at it. So don't exclude yourself from from that. And I would encourage you to do that. If that's something that you're interested in doing, you just need to kind of accelerate the pitch. You really need to grab their attention in the first few minutes. It's an experience I had. I think I've knocked on every door at Silicon Valley. So that first few minutes are very, very crucial. Love your style of presentation. I think you had a great style. If you just can hone in that message a lot quicker, I think that would be great. The other thing that I felt was somewhat missing, and perhaps you can address, you did a good job in addressing the total market, and that's great. I think everybody can relate to online shopping. I just didn't take from you in terms of what is your target market, and what's your pricing model, what's your your business model. But overall, really liked your style of presentation. I think you you have the talent, there, and um, uh, very impressive presentation.
Thank you so much for that feedback. That's great. I will take everything into account. To address your question about the business model, I think with a big user database that I will try to acquire, advertisement will be my main source of income for the app. And as I have this opportunity, I would like to ask you a question. Although maybe e-commerce isn't your expertise, but software development is, I'm just wondering if you see any potential obstacles in developing a software that can accurately place orders when given a link to a website, because I'm just wondering, why hasn't this been done yet?
You'll be surprised. Sometimes great ideas, they're great ideas. Not everybody can think about a great idea. On the development side, I think that is really the least of your worries. I mean, we now have, there's just so much talent out there, and you really can outsource that talent. There's so many outsourcing organization, inside the U.S., in California, outside the U.S. So, plenty of talent, and so I don't think that's going to be a challenge for you.
Okay. Great, good to know. So that it's possible. Thank you.
Great presentation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tallene, and thank you, AJ, for your feedback. I'm going to pass it down to our next participant, who is Sarkis Kapapian. He's a first-year student at GCC studying computer science, majoring in computer science. And Sarkis, the stage is yours.
All right. First, before I start sharing okay, let me just share my screen. Share and present. All right. So before we start this presentation, I would like a chance to just so you can understand what I'm into. So as a CS student, I currently dabbling and learning Python, full stack web development, and Java. I've always been in love with programming and computers. I've been doing it since I was 14. So naturally, I thought this was a really, really cool thing to dive into. And I know, Mr. Abdallat, that you were involved in AI. So I was to myself, I'm thinking, why not try to pitch an AI sort of product to him? So here it is. So think about it. The massive craze that happened in the financial market, GameStop, AMC, Dogecoin, all those type of stuff. Everyone started to get involved without knowing, without researching. They just went in. Some were winners, some were losers. But what we know is there's a massive amount of users that are now new people getting into online stock trading. I present you computational analysis in business with my software, my AI, Plutus. Now, the name comes from the Greek god of wealth, and I believe that that's really good correlation. So, just for some context, how we can use computational analysis in business. So, first of all, in algorithmic trading is one of the most fastest growing industries when it comes to the financial market. And with computational analysis, if your AI has a has an algorithm trading algorithm in terms of it predicts market trends, it looks at quarterly earnings, it checks all different news outlets, so it can see what's going on in the financial market. Does it look like it's going to dip? Does it look like it's going to go up, or will it stabilize, or will it just stay the same? And I understand that there's all types of AI. People are in algorithmic trading, people are getting dabbling into that. But again, and then there's the deep learning applications that you put into that, where you are basically putting in those sort of learning capabilities. Because comparing AI and humans, AI learns thousands of times faster than we do. Imagine giving those learning capabilities to an AI to then go and analyze market trends, stocks, and to analyze what's going on in this business. So I think, and also adding mathematical concepts, because a lot of people, when they think of machine learning, oh, it's programming, but not only programming, a lot of heavy mathematical concepts such as probability, statistics, and logic are incorporated into that. So here is, I'm going to further explain what Bluetooth actually is and what it can do. So Bluetooth, this is my coin term, Mr. Abdallat, an artificial stock trader. Think of it as a person, but not really. It's an AI that learns everything about stocks, everything about what's going on in the financial market, and how so? With deep learning technology. An AI with incorporation of deep learning gives it learning capabilities that no one can imagine. No one can. Because because computers calculate and process information so quickly. There's no room for human error when it comes to computers. That's the thing that separates a human stock trader from AI. There's no room for human error on an AI. When you tell them to do something, to learn this, do that, if this, then that, they will do it, and at a pace that we cannot comprehend. And then that's another thing. It uses wide varieties of different algorithms. So let's say one thing's going on in the market, use this algorithm, predict, look at the quarterly earnings, calculate based on predictions, look at how was the market 5 years ago compared to now. What's the current trends? Look at the housing market. Should we short this? Should we buy more of the housing bonds? So there's a lot of things that go into that. Um, and that's what I think people need to be implemented in. Yeah, I know deep learning, machine learning, all this stuff, it's new trends. It's a very trending topic, but I don't think people know how to implement it correctly. And that's why, if there's a market for it, and we'll get on to that in a couple other slides. So here's some data to present how big of a market there is for this right now. So here is rise of the machines, as it's called. And since you're involved in sort of I believe it was in oil equities and other stuff like that, right? And if you see, look at the markets for this, all of the algorithmic trading, those who are trading right now in our current market as of 2010. I'm using an old graph just to present you what we have now. So in 2010, around 54% of the market was run and dominated by machines. As in, the person who was trading was a machine. It's not a person. And all of these new industries that are going into it, they're using algorithmic trading. So it's becoming a hot and very trendy thing to go on with. And then as we see here, look at the sheer capability of its trading process, of its power, of how quickly it trades, how quickly it processes the stock. In 250 milliseconds, this is how much a graph fluctuated. I mean, it looks like a cryptocurrency or something, the amount of volatility in this, because the amount that's being traded, how quickly it's being traded. That's a very good thing to note because, for example, if you give an algo trader, if you give an AI, tell them, go and trade this stock for, there's a stock for $9.04, buy it, sell it off for $9.05. If they do that every second, 1,000 times, millisecond like that, quick speeds, you make millions of dollars of profit, unfathomable amounts of money that comes from this because of how quickly and how precisely it trades. So how Bluetooth AI would work. So as I said before, there are so many different AIs, so many financial firms are hopping onto that. They're developing AI, they're hiring data scientists, as you said, they're hiring them to crunch the numbers to create their own AI, right? But one thing that a lot of people don't understand is how they can implement learning capabilities. The technology and the research in it is still in its infancy, and I have a research paper that we'll get into on the other presentation. But just to tell you how it works, I'll give you a scenario. So as of right now, Mr. Abdallah, if you blink 4 times, 240,000 stocks have been traded. That so in its own way, if you were to just create the AI, it doesn't know anything about stocks, right? but with the deep learning algorithm you give it, with its learning capabilities, with the how quickly it does it, it can learn all of these Fortune 500 companies how they trade stocks. So let's say how Goldman Sachs, how do they trade? How do they buy and sell? What are their tactics? Because us average humans, we can't. It takes us decades of research to understand and analyze financial analysis papers, see what they're doing, option trading tactics, because we cannot learn as quick as AI can. It is impossible. So it works in a way like on my other scenario as well. It trades stocks. That 1 cent difference, it doesn't. People can look and say, "Oh, it's 1 cent," but if it's being traded thousands upon thousands of times in seconds worth of time, that's an unfathomable amount of profit from that. So, and then now down to why deep learning, and so I found a recent study that showed that in the tech industry right now, there isn't a lot of academic literature in the financial world, in Wall Street, and in options and all that. A very lacking amount of literature, and also a lacking amount of practice. Either the deep learning algorithm or technology isn't very good, or many people want to stick to their old ways. There's a saying, Mr. Abdallah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So many companies are sticking to their old policies, their old ways of buying and selling and managing stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. But as we can see here, is it for viewers who are not too well versed in deep learning, very cookie cutter, very basic sort of graph of how deep learning would be implemented in this type of thing. If I were to give Plutus, my AI, if I were to create a very sophisticated deep learning algorithm, and it would be able to calculate from all these type of stuff, oil price prediction. That's how it will say you should invest this via the oil price prediction. It goes even to banking industries and the trading. All of this, it provides for their predictions, and it analyzes markets and feasibilities to then function on you should buy this stock, or no, the oil market is down now, don't buy it. But it's all with learning. As we learn throughout our lives, AI will also learn throughout its course. It's not going to automatically know everything. That's why you send it out into the cyberspace. You say, read this article, predict this, look at the quarterly earnings. So it picks it up and picks it up and picks it up and gives an accurate prediction of what's likely can happen in the financial market. So as we see this, I'm nearing the end of my presentation. Now, Mr. Abdallah, even though I have been only coding for 2 to 3 years, and you have been involved in engineering and in data science for 2 to 3 decades, so you know AI and machine learning and its concepts like the back of your hand. Your entire company is run on that. So there are many other ideas out there for AI that I'm sure you heard of. So many different other deep learning this, machine learning that. But I believe that if you were to give a sophisticated model, a sophisticated and very pristine deep learning software in an algorithmic trading AI, it will just completely flat out dominate the market. I mean, if you remember the flash crash in 2012, it was all done via high interval trading. That's why there was a flash crash from it, because so many stocks are being traded in such a futile amount of time. So the market is changing. Mr. Abdallah, over 70% of the current market is run and being traded back and forth by machines. So each nanosecond, each sort of keyboard click, each blink of an eye is taken into consideration. We are near a technological revolution, with neural networks being in place, Elon Musk developing certain stuff with machine learning as well. He's developing stuff. So there's a wave right now, Mr. Abdallah. We are in this current wave, and either we can hop on that wave and surf and ride along with it, or we can just watch it from afar. And I want to hop on that wave. I want to see what's going to improve in this market. And I'm mainly talking from the heart. There's no script here, Mr. Abdallah. I'm presenting from what I believe is true and from what my knowledge is. And I'm deeply involved and I deeply care about technology and the advancement of how it can help others and how it can shift the financial market. So thank you for viewing my presentation. Again, questions, feedback, everything's appreciated. I'm here to learn and I'm here to seek your advice.
Uh, no, great. Thank you for the presentation. Just got
Thank
a
you, Sarkis.
couple of quick
Great
questions.
presentation. I'm going to pass it down to our speaker for further feedback.
Thank you, Sophia. My number question, you mentioned you're a first year CS student?
A first year CS student, Mr. Abdallah.
Awesome. That is great. Really impressed with both presentations and both young entrepreneurs. Really impressive.
I'm sorry if the design was a little bit lackluster. Design is not my it's not my forte.
Oh, yeah. No, look, anytime a guy would just basically have his closet as the backdrop, of his presentation is just like, it shows me a guy with confidence, So anyway, couple of quick things. It wasn't really clear to me. Are you going out? Who are your target audience? Is it the consumers like
the
me?
Target it was in the slide, but I knew that I was in a time crunch, so I maybe have glossed over it, or I didn't go over it too much. But mainly my target audience, I'll go over it now. The average person, because because as you know, many companies, quant traders, and they get all those big companies like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan. They hire PhD math students. They hire data scientists, especially for this. But if you have an AI that can do that 1,000 times faster and much more efficiently without human error, that's where that advantage comes in. And that's where the average person can step in and use the AI to help them and to make them profit. Or you can even pitch this to an artificial intelligence firm like yourself, who wants to get involved and that kind of stuff.
Okay. Look, a couple of things. One is the reason we're getting into fintech is because 2021 is going to be known as, if you're an AI-based fintech company, I mean, you're going to get funding. It's been a tremendous
exactly.
Exactly. You picked the right, sector to be in. Two, I really love your passion. I think it shows.
I appreciate it. Thank
you. Just
you.
as the previous presentation, both presenters today, you can just basically see the passion from both presentations. Although I'm going to contradict myself right now, I mentioned AI-based fintech is the right sector. Companies like us right now are basically getting into the business. Stock trading is really a very, very competitive.
Exactly, because there's already established giants. There's already established people on Wall Street. Exactly.
So you know all of that. So this is not it's a tough business.
Exactly.
Again, love the passion. I think it shows, it comes across. Just a couple of just feedback in terms of my own experience. Really focused a lot on emphasizing the deep learning, the technology, the speed, the performance. And for somebody who's a tech nerd like me, I actually do appreciate that. Unfortunately, you're going to be basically presenting to business guys. So
yeah, they don't want to see graphs, studies. They don't want to see that.
Try to kind of, focus. And I look, you're a CS guy. I get it. Try to focus on addressing the business objectives, because that's really what they care about.
Mr. Abdallah, I'm actually writing a white paper on this. I'm actually looking at studies for it. So I'm actually going to take that into account and try to make it more simplified.
Yeah. But young man, I admire your passion. You picked the right sector. I'm a big fan of this sector. Specifically, the application you picked is a very tough, competitive market. One thing, have you thought about other than just stock trading? Have you thought about?
Yes, actually, one of these. I don't want to take too much time. I hope I'm not taking too much time from you, but what I did thought about was like I was thinking about creating like a this theory that our civilization as we know it is a simulation, correct? How about we actually make a simulated life, an AI simulated life? It's more of a experimental thing, not much of a sort of a for-profit sort of situation, which this company is. It's for algorithmic trading, but more of just if how our civilization started, Big Bang, this and this and this. If you were to create an AI simulated life, where if you worked with the biologists and the data scientists and the AI programmers, you created an own simulated society in a computer that mimics our civilization. Do you catch what I'm taking down,
I
Mr.
think
Abdallah?
we got a big dreamer, a big thinker here. Okay, so
Like
this
a
is
yeah,
you
like
know
it's a lot of data that's going to be processed, obviously, because that like I was always thinking about that. I've in the back of my head, I'm like, how that should be a possibility if we have done so much throughout the human society in the past 10,000 years. Wouldn't that be one of the biggest innovations? Is an experimental project of creating an artificial universe that's encoded just bytes. It's basically binary, all of this machine code, but it's translated into its own simulated life. That's one of my other projects, but that's a huge thing that I'm not even capable right now of my skill set. I cannot in this skill set, but that's a big dream of mine.
yeah, no, it's a big dream. You may also, last final comments from my side. You may want to be thinking about collaborating with talent. I think she can help on bringing the business savvy to the presentation. I see a very powerful team here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
I
Yeah,
appreciate it. Thank you so much, Mr. Abdallah.
you're welcome.
Thank you to our participants and thank you, AJ, for your feedback. I see a lot of great questions coming from our audience, so I'm going to be passing it down to Mark, the chairman of Business UCLA, for the Q&A session.
Hi, AJ. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. Likewise.
So the first question we have is, so we know now that you're a very successful entrepreneur, but what started your initial passion for entrepreneurship? Before Beyond Limits, did you have different entrepreneurial ventures, and how did those go?
Really, it's kind of hard to explain. As again, as I mentioned to you, as a kid going into engineering school, I always had this passion and love that I want to start my own company. So it was kind of like in me, from uh, since I was a young kid, and uh, I'm glad I did it. It's not obviously not for everyone, but for anybody who aspires to be an entrepreneur, I strongly recommend it and follow your passion.
Great. So another question that we just got from the audience, on one of the articles on Beyond Limits, because you guys have the news section, we have a quote from you where you say that you believe AI is the most disruptive technology since electricity and the internet. Would you care to elaborate on that quote at all?
Well, I mean, I mentioned just earlier that just don't take my word for it. Okay, PwC did this survey, where 60% of all CEOs, they actually felt that AI will have a larger impact than the internet. I really believe so. I do. I think now we're going into what they call the fourth industrial revolution. AI and digital transformation is gonna play a significant role, and wait until I'm very optimistic about the future. I think as we migrate into strong intelligence with quantum computing, with wide adoption of cognitive AI and emotional intelligence, that's going to be a very important element. We're going to basically, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're really going to be able to solve problems and things that we haven't done before. Look at the impact of social media. I mean, if you look 20 years ago, we now have jobs that 20 years ago did not exist. I just think AI is just ripe to really just have a paradigm shift, a major shift in the economy. I think digital economy is just the greatest opportunity, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I actually think the future of technology from where we're at now is very exciting, and we're actually in a very unique point in history where we're able to witness its entire like rise. One of the other questions we have is, do you have any favorite projects, maybe even from Beyond Limits, that you'd like to share with us? One of your favorite things you guys have worked on?
So maybe not favorite, but maybe more of a passion. I've talked about that, we are into industrial AI, energy, renewable, sustainability, power, utility, smart manufacturing. We're getting into fintech. Fintech is getting a lot of attention. We're getting into healthcare just because there's some complex problem that needs AI. One industry that I think is going to have a significant impact, where I think it's going to be a big opportunity for AI, is in the educational sector. Being a father, I honestly think we just need to change our educational system. I think we're going to look back and we're going to see that our educational system is not only backward, but it's actually cruel the way we teach our kids today. So that's an area I'm actually excited about, and I'm hoping that maybe my next venture would be in applying AI in the educational space. I just want to quickly mention, my passion is, I believe the future of AI is a collaboration between human and the machine. So I still think, and we champion the human is still very relevant into this equation. AI is not going to replace us. We're going to be very central. We're going to set objectives. So I strongly believe that I want that human teacher in the room. We're not going to replace the teacher, but what we're going to do is we're going to provide AI agents and capability to personalize the experience for the younger kids, so we can at least tailor how we basically present information and education based on their strengths and weaknesses. Tremendous opportunity in education. That's my passion.
For some of the things that you'd like to reform in education, would you say it's throughout the board, starting from all the way like elementary, middle school, high school, into university? Would you say university had well prepared you for your own career in the future in machine learning and AI?
The first part of your question, I agree. We need to start early. We need, maybe I'm not going to be popular by saying this, we need to start teaching math at age 2, not 6. We need to look at how we think. We're going to be surprised. We're operating based on concepts and things that are very, very old, and I think really it's time to just change everything and start early in the process, very early in the process.
All right. And one other thing, what would you say some of the most valuable skills are for someone getting into the AI or machine learning field? I know you mentioned that you guys look for a lot of field experts who then you could teach the AI and machine learning side too. But apart from that, for someone pursuing a career in that field, what do you say some of the most valuable skills to have are?
So again, at conferences that I speak at, I see younger people come to me and ask me, they say, we got an engineering degree, mechanical engineering degree, or a civil engineering degree, or I have a math degree. Should I go back to college and try to basically become a data scientist, go into CS and just kind of focus on data science? And I would say that, if you're graduating from high school and that's your passion, absolutely, go for it. But I really do believe that AI is going to leverage, we need domain experts, we need the engineers, we need the geophysicists, we even actually need, folks, from non-scientific background. I mentioned earlier that I'm excited about the future of AI, especially as we head into strong AI with the advancements in quantum computing, because currently today traditional computing technology is not going to be sufficient. But I also see wider adoption of cognitive AI and emotional intelligence. This is where we need our colleagues from the liberal arts. There is a place for you to play, and we need you as part of this revolution. Everybody's going to be relevant. Everybody's going to be important.
When starting up Beyond Limits, what would you say some of the biggest challenges you had to face are? And looking back, how would you approach that differently?
This is really an interesting question. I would say, obviously, when you're starting a new company, there are many, many challenges that you'll be facing. But one constant and important challenge that you really need to account for is the human elements. Okay, so companies will succeed if you really, if you can build the right team around you, and they can buy into your passion and into your vision. You're gonna go do great things. I happen, been blessed that I've worked with, with smart people, and one really consistent formula of success with all the folks that I've learned from was, they tend to believe in surround yourself by intelligent people, empower them, provide them the right environment to do the right things, sell them on your vision and passion, make sure that everybody's gonna row in the same direction, and great things do happen. So human element is really the biggest challenge, and it's always going to be the challenge that you need to tackle. Now, if you channel that energy in the right place, it can be an area of strength for you. And if you don't handle it correctly, it's going to be a disaster, for you. So that's really the most difficult challenge.
Makes sense. I know in this last year and a half, a lot of business owners in different industries were impacted by COVID. Was AI or your field something that also had certain challenges because of the pandemic?
So COVID created a lot of challenges for many, just about everyone. There's no question about that. I would just make this comment, although it was a very tragic situation, obviously with loss of life, loss of jobs, the impact it had on small businesses, people getting out of business. Very, very unfortunate and tragic situation. If you can look at it and say, was there any silver lining out of that, a tragic situation, is what we've noticed in the US. And I actually think you can, I think it's true for the global situation, is we've noticed a speed in adoption of digital transformation, digital technologies, and specifically AI. And in the US, we believe that it's, acceleration of about 5 to 7 years. I don't know about the rest of the world, but we're beginning to see that companies realize that, to support remote work, if you're managing large value assets, that you basically needed to adopt and deploy technology. You needed to build that trust between people and technology. People actually, they've showed how relevant they are, and a lot of people basically just embrace technology, and they were able, to do great things. So a lot of negative things about COVID, but we did see an acceleration and adoption of digital transformation, digital technologies, and AI.
And going back to the topic of quantum computing and how you said that quantum computing would be a pivotal part of the future, what actual changes do you think would come about that we don't have currently because we haven't had quantum computing integrated?
So today,
computing do you believe will make a significant impact into the future?
Well, today, we're actually encountering some problems that traditional computing power, even with NVIDIA's most powerful machines, it takes too long. It's not possible, to really solve. I just give you some examples, from the energy side. There are some large simulation sets that right now, with the most advanced computers, with traditional computing technology, will take hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, to run. So obviously, this just, are not doable today. But our vision at Beyond Limits is, we think we believe today, if you look at AI and the way AI is implemented, it's kind of a standalone. You use an application, you implement AI, but it's like a standalone application. Where we see the future of AI, if we're going to get to strong AI, is in terms of really collaboration between these AI agents, although they may not have the expertise for each other, but I think the insight that's going to come from these network intelligent agents, what we call the intelligence societies, is going to basically yield great insight. And for that, so that's an area we're excited about. You need high performance, systems to achieve that. And just quickly, since you mentioned quantum, I actually think quantum has, a lot of people that still believe that maybe we're 20 years from maturing, from that technology being mature. I actually happen to think it's a lot sooner than that. I'm aware of some research where I think you're going to see some very quantum computers that are actually going to do some useful problems.
And as someone more like involved in the technology industry, what would you say your ideas on things like Elon Musk's Neuralink project are?
Great concept. Great idea. Love it. I love the idea, but we're not there.
Yeah. Do you have any timeline of when you think something like that would be feasible? Do you think it's something that we're close to, or do you think it's like a pretty far-fetched idea?
It's a very tough, challenging problem to solve. I admire him. He's a big thinker. He's someone that, like to go after big, challenging things, but really the kind of things we were just talking about, this is where you really need quantum computing. You need a wider adoption of AI. We need, more a closer collaboration with AI. We can't just have these standalone systems. We need to mature the emotional intelligence side, and I'm seeing significant improvement from that field. So there's a lot of work to be done, but the good news is we're making improvement. If you ask me, is it going to happen? I actually happen to believe that it will. The question is when. We're not there yet.
Okay. Also, to get your topic, what are your thoughts on things like cryptocurrencies as of now?
Look, I actually think that digital currency will happen. I think there is demand for it. It makes sense. There is a lot of benefits for digital currencies. I think my only issue with it is, the regulators are going to fight it. But what we're seeing a lot of the central banks now basically get on board, where they basically want to have their own version of digital currencies. So what I'm noticing is right now a lot of countries with central banks, basically they're going to champion their own version of digital currency. And by the way, that might not be a bad thing. As a society, as we basically get used to that, it's going to speed adoption, but it's not going to happen until you get these regulators on board. I think right now they're the obstacle for a wider adoption, cryptocurrency.
Okay, and one final question. You mentioned that you were planning to get into the healthcare industry and that there are a lot of problems that AI could solve. What are some of the problems that you see in the healthcare industry that you think AI would be able to create solutions for?
So today in the US, we spend about 23.5% of our GDP on healthcare. I mean, almost 1/4. It's not sustainable. It would bankrupt the country. I mean, we can't sustain this level of spending and the lack of, efficiency. Biggest opportunity I see is actually, I mean, there are many opportunities. I don't want to, but one opportunity that I think that's going to have a major impact is in population health. And I think, data analytics, AI, data science has matured enough where it's going to have an impact. If you think about it, most of our investment today in healthcare, it's going, 80% of the cost is going after less than 20%, of the patients. If we can apply our analytics, AI capabilities, and target the population at risk and take immediate actions to make sure that they don't get to a situation where it's going to be a major problematic healthcare issues for them, and basically a cost for the system. We need to be smarter and more efficient. And actually, I'm seeing this. I'm seeing the U.S. slowly moving into what we call value-based healthcare. I think that's a step in the right direction. But I'm more just from as an entrepreneur, I'm more a fan of kind of analytics, population health. I think we can reap. There's some low-hanging fruit we can have an immediate impact on.
Great. Thank you so much, AJ. That concludes the questions we have from the audience. I really appreciate your time. I think there was a lot of valuable insight from the answers you gave. I'll give it back to Sophia for her to conclude.
All right. Thank you, Mark. So it seems like we've got most of the good audience questions and as well as our own questions. So I think we can get to wrapping this event up. So first off, I want to thank you, AJ, for taking your time to be at this event. It has been a pleasure to be able to speak with you, and I'm sure it was helpful for our students too. And to our audience and students, thank you for tuning in and hope you have gained some valuable information. So thank you all for attending and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for having me.